breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, warmer from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got a great podcast for you, as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by Rob Donaldson, who does such great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets. We're going to be chatting with him about how he's taking a look at things the next week or two with the trade deadline coming up. Does he just place his bets a little bit earlier, a little bit later on in the day? And then additionally, we do have to break down what is a very solid Tuesday MLB card. We're going to be doing that with him in the final segment. Going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Tuesday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, but everything is powered by Edge Boost. Over Edge Boost, they're making sure that bettors have access to their funds 24/7. 100% of gambling transactions are always approved. You get cashback rewards when you use Edge Boost, and when you go to edgeboost.bet, put in that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That gets you a $1 for $1 match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Tuesday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The top over team in all of baseball is the Seattle Mariners, but they played an under against Milwaukee Brewers because they got nothing going. 6-0. Brewers get the job done. As for the Brewers, they were held scoreless in the first 5 innings, and then they explode upon George Kirby, who gives up 4 runs in 6 innings, getting all 4 of those runs. Give it up in the 6th inning. Trent Thornton from there, a scoreless inning. Carlos Vargas, a scoreless inning, and you'd have 2 runs, one of which was earned. Give it up by Braden Garcia in his MLB debut. For Seattle, just absolutely nothing doing for them at the plate. 0-4 with men in scoring position as Brandon Woodruff. 6 scoreless innings. From there, Aaron Ashby, 2 scoreless innings, and Grant Anderson, he was able to supply a scoreless inning of his own. Next best over team in all of baseball is the Sacramento A's. 53 overs, 41 unders, and 8 pushes, and, well, they gave it up to the Texas Rangers. 7-2 the final. Lawrence Butler, a nice home run robbery, so shout out to him, but Jacob Lopez, boy, 5 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings, including a pair of bombs, as you had Josh Young get home run number 9 of the campaign, and it was home run number 1 for Michael Hellman. Congratulations to him. And for the Texas Rangers, Jack Leiter lighted it up, giving up 2 runs in 6 innings to give up a Nick Kurtz home run, his 19th home run of the season, but Obi Milner, Sean Armstrong, and Cole Winn all lend a scoreless inning for the Athletics. You did have Elvis Alvarado leave the building, giving up 2 runs in an inning before Sean Newcomb, Mason Miller, they piecemealed together 2 scoreless innings between the two of them. For the Cubs, they play an over as well, but they gave it up to the Kansas City Royals. 12-4 the final. As for the Royals, Noah Cameron was not even sharp in this game. 4 runs allowed in 6 innings, including a pair of bombs. Carson Kelly, 13th home run of the season. Brian Shaw is 4th, and Ryan Brazier, the opener, he did his part. He won a scoreless inning, and then Ben Brown, welcome back, giving up 7 runs, 6 of which were earned in 4 innings. And then you had Chris Flexen give up a pair of bombs. 5 runs given up in 3 innings, as Brown allowed a pair of home runs himself. Salvador Perez, he gets a home run off of both gentlemen. 16th and 17th home runs of the season. You had Jack Caglione get home run number 5 of the season. And then John Rave, he raved out to being able to get his 3rd home run of the campaign for the Royals. You did have John Schreiber come in for a scoreless inning. Andrew Huffman, 2 scoreless innings. And after the dust settled for the Chicago Cubs, you did have John Birdie, a position player, give you a scoreless inning. So, yay, verily there. And well, the Arizona Diamondbacks are going to be an intriguing team the next few weeks. They have many tradable assets, and they fall to Houston Astros, so they're back below 500, 6-3 the final. Colton Gordon gives up 3 runs, 2 of which were earned in 5 2/3 innings. And Eugenio Suarez, just so hot right now. 36th home run of the campaign. Zach Allen, so cold right now. 6 runs allowed in 6 innings, including a pair of home runs, as it was home runs number 1 and 2 for Bryce Matthews of the season. That's not great for Zach Allen, to say the least, and both bullpens were relatively solid. Bennett Sosa, 4 outside the bullpen scoreless. Steven Okert, Josh Hader, both on a scoreless inning for the Astros, and then Kendall Graveman, Andrew Saalfrank, and Trevor Richards. They're all able to supply a scoreless inning for the Arizona Diamondbacks, being able to get lots of scoreless innings. The Pittsburgh Pirates behind Paul Skeens, as the Pirates get the job done 3-0 the final. As for the Detroit Tigers, Captain Jack Flaherty was captain of the giving up 3 runs in 3 innings campaign. Everyone else from there was fine. Dietrich Enns and Chase Lee combined for 4 scoreless scoreless innings. Tommy Kahnle, who's been awful recently, a scoreless inning, but for the Tigers, nothing doing at the plate as Paul Skeens, 6 scoreless innings, allowed 3 hits. Bryson Ashcraft, Dennis Santana, David Benner, they all give you a scoreless inning, and things were much more than scoreless out there in Cleveland. 10-5. The Guardians absolutely take it out on the Orioles as the Orioles put up 3 runs in the first inning, and then you had Tomoyuki Sugano give up 4 runs, 3 of which were earned in 3 2/3 innings, including a home run. You had from there a home run given up by Corbin Martin in his inning of work. Connor Selby, he gives up a home run in his inning of work, and he was able to give you an additional out of the bullpen as well before Grant Wolfram. 4 runs allowed in 2 innings, and Ramon Laureano was able to get a home run and 4 RBI off of Tanner Bybee. 12th home run of the campaign. Bybee, not a great start. 5 runs, 3 of which weren't given up in 7 innings. Kobe Allard along with Hunter Gaddis, they both ended scoreless inning, but for the Cleveland Guardians, Jose Ramirez, 20th home run of the season. Josh Naylor is 10th, and then Kyle Manzardo is 16th home run of the season. The Slam Diego Padres and the Miami Marlins played one of the few unders that we saw on Monday. It was a very overwhelming day. 2-1, the Padres get the job done as Randy Vasquez goes 4 1/3 innings, allows a home run to Kyle Stowers, 22nd home run of the campaign. That's all the Marlins would get. Audrey Motohone, 5 outs of the bullpen scoreless. Jeremiah Estrada, Jason Adam, Robert Suarez, all end a scoreless inning. And for the San Diego Padres, they got to Erie Perez, giving up 2 runs in 5 innings. From there, 2 scoreless innings apiece of Tyler Phillips along Josh Simpson. So nice low-scoring affair out there. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, Zach Whelan and Dylan Wheeler, well, he was Whelan and he was Dylan. The Phillies get the 3-2 win. For Wheeler, he does not get the win. He does give up 2 runs in 6 innings, giving up a home run, but also punched out 10. You had Jaron Duran get his 9th home run season. Walker Buehler, one of his best starts in quite some time. 2 runs, 1 of which was earned, given up in 7 innings. Aroldis Chapman, Garrett Woodlock both provide a scoreless inning, but Jordan Hicks allows an unearned run in the 10th inning as it was Armando Sosa reaching base on a catcher's interference. Then into the game, you don't see that very often, and for the Philadelphia Phillies, bullpen was great. Max Laser, Matt Strom, Orion Kirkering, Tanner Banks, all able to supply you with a scoreless inning. You had a lot of scoreless innings provided by the Blue Jays as well. 4-1, they hold down the New York Yankees. For the Yankees, Giancarlo Stanton gets his 5th home run season off of Kevin Gausman. That would be Gausman's lone mistake, going 7 innings, giving up that home run. Brandon Little, Uriel Rodriguez combined for a scoreless inning, and Jeff Hoffman scoreless inning to be able to get the save. And for the Yankees, Carlos Rodon gives up 4 runs in 5 innings, but 2 of which were unearned. Oswaldo Peraza, Anthony Volpe, both had a pair of errors out there in the field, though. Rodon did walk 5. Scott Effross, a scoreless inning, and JT Brubaker, 2 scoreless innings. As for the Blue Jays, they do strand 9 men on base, but they do enough to be able to get the job done out there. Being able to get the job done, the Washington Nationals 10-8 the final. As for Cincinnati, Brady Singer was singing the blues. He gives up 7 runs and he only gets 7 outs. Did give up a home run to Josh Bell, his 12th home run in the campaign. From there, Lyon Richardson gives up a run in an inning. Sam Moll gives up a run in 1 1/3 innings. Graham Ashcraft, he gives up a run in a 1/3 of innings. Scott Barlow, Taylor Rogers, Brent Suter lend a scoreless inning. And for the Reds, they lose this game despite going 6 of 18 with men in scoring position, as Jake Irvin did not have a good start. 5 runs allowed in 3 2/3 innings. Kyle Finnegan becoming very suspect, gives up 2 runs in the 9th inning in his inning of work, but Cole Henry, Andrew Chafin, Luis Garcia, Jose Ferrer lend a scoreless inning, and Mason Thompson out of the bullpen scoreless as the Nationals win this game while stranding 14 men on base. Don't see that very often, and well, for the New York Metropolitans, they get the job done against the LA Angels. 7-5 the final. What you do see often is the Angels bullpen not performing well, as Reed Detmers gives up a run in an inning. Jose Fermin, he gives up a pair of runs in a 1/3 of an inning. Both were unearned, as Brock and Rolberg, he was able to give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless as well, but you've seen Tyler Anderson really start to regress. 4 runs allowed in 6 innings, long overdue. Brett Beatty, his 11th home run season, and Kodai Senga was not good in this game. 4 runs allowed over the course of his 3 innings. He was overdue for regression, and he gives up a home run to Logan O'Hoppe, 18th home run season. Not so O'Hoppe about the fact that he gave up an error in the 8th inning, but still relatively solid. Kevin Harrigan from there, 2 1/3 innings scoreless. Chris Stavinsky gives up a run in his inning, but Oscar Brazoban, pair of outs out of the bullpen. Brooks Raley and Edwin Diaz, they're both able to turn a scoreless inning. The San Francisco Giants had perhaps one of the worst starts you're ever going to see from Hayden Birdsong. 9-5, they fall to the Atlanta Braves. Hayden Birdsong faced 5 batters. He walked 4 of them. He threw 25 pitches, 6 of which were for strikes. He gave up 5 runs on 1 hit. How is that possible? Like, the Atlanta Braves got 9 runs in this game off of 8 frickin' hits. My gosh. Matt Gage from there tried to hold the inherited runners on. He goes for 2 scoreless innings. He did allow the inherited runners to score, but he was not charged with any runs of his own. Spencer Bivens, he was miserable. 3 runs given up in 1 2/3 innings. Tristan Beck. For outside the bullpen, Squirrels. So Loy Ramos did not help his guys out, by the way. Ryan Walker, 1 run allowed in 2 innings. Camilo Duvall, 8 scoreless inning. And Willie Adames has all of a sudden gotten hot. He gets his 15th home run of the season. That off of Rafael Montero, who's been more like Rafael Montero Bull, giving up that solo home run in his inning of work. Bryce Elder, he looked a bit elderly. He gave up 8 hits, 3 runs in 5 innings. Aaron Bummer, scoreless inning. And then Angel De Los Santos, he gives up a run in his 2 innings of work. And the Rays also looked elderly on this night. About 8-3, the White Sox, who have come out of the All-Star break and now won 4 straight road games. Not sure where this has come from, but you had Miguel Vargas get his 12th home run season off of Shane Baz, and Brooks Baldwin his 5th home run season, as the Baz gave up 8 runs in 4 innings, including those 2 bombs. From there, Mason Engler, Kevin Kelly, 2 scoreless innings apiece, Garrett Clevenger, 8 scoreless inning, and you did have Yandy Diaz go deep off of Brandon Eisert, 16th home run in the campaign. Sean Burke, not too long for this game, 2 unearned runs given up in 4 innings, but jacked up his pitch count. Tyler Gilbert, Steven Wilson from there combined for 2 scoreless innings. Eisert gives up that home run in his inning work, and then Jordan Leisure and Dan Altavia, they both are able to lend a scoreless inning, and I do have to have this up by midnight Pacific time, 3 o'clock a.m. Eastern. Right now, the Dodgers are up 5-1 in the top of the 9th inning, looking to close things out. As for the Minnesota Twins, this was not what they were hoping for out of David Festa. He gave a fiesta to LA Dodgers hitters. He gives up 4 runs in 5 1/3 innings, including a trio of bombs. Will Smith does get jiggy with it. His home runs 13th and 14th of the campaign, and he paused a little bit later on off of Cole Sands, 18th home run season, and Shohei Ohtani, it is showtime, 35th home run in the campaign. Sands gives up that solo home run in his 2 innings of work, and Louis Varland, pair of outside the bullpen Squirrels, did have Shohei Ohtani get the start and give up a home run to Byron Buxton, leadoff shot, 23rd home run in the campaign for Ohtani. He goes 3 innings giving up that solo home run. Dustin May was the surprise bulk guy in this one, 4 2/3 innings scoreless, and right now Tanner Scott has gotten a pair of outside the bullpen, looking to get 2 more to be able to polish off that Dodgers run line. And if you're looking trend-wise at what we're getting in Major League Baseball right now, it has been very much an overwhelming second half of the season to start with. Since the All-Star break, 33 overs to most likely 25 unders, considering the Dodgers versus Twins game is very much trending under. And for favorites, they've won just 30 and 29 on the money line if the Dodgers do get the job done here on Monday. And if you're looking overall for the season favorites, you got about 57.5%, 859 and 633 on the money line, while the over sitting at a clip of about 47.8%, 693 overs to 757 under. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we all got on Monday. Now let's talk with our good friend Rob Donaldson about how he's taking a look at the trade deadline and Tuesday's games right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man as we've got Rob Donaldson aboard. He does great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets. You're able to catch him on youtube.com/Rob Donaldson. Doing a great job on that front. He does an amazing job of handicapping college basketball, baseball, and so much more. And you're able to follow him on Twitter/X at RobDFB. And Rob, it is always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Greg. It's always a pleasure to talk some ball with you. And now, we're getting down to the final stretch here. And here in a week, we're going to see a very different ball club on all of these rosters. So it's really fun to kind of dive into the sport right now specifically. And again, we're going to have to kind of stay attentive because these rosters and these outlooks are going to change drastically here coming up.
Yep, they certainly are going to. And just how much do you want to be placing your bets a little bit later for the next week or so, not knowing when a team is going to be moving guys and not knowing what's going to be happening at the trade deadline these next few days?
I think it becomes a very prevalent thing, especially when we're talking about kind of the next week's scope of the trade deadline looming. And notably, when you're talking about these like starting pitchers, like maybe a Charlie Morton, for example, or some of these dudes who are almost like guaranteed to be moved from a team that's out of the mix already and is on that 1-year deal as a starting pitcher, make sure those bullpens are fresh because that's what you might be relying on 1 hour before the starting pitch. And it can absolutely flip a bet on its head. And sometimes even openly fading that targeted area might actually pay some dividends.
I think that's really good advice. And how do we take a look at some of these teams that are right now on the cusp? Like the Arizona Diamondbacks are very much a talked about team. We don't know whether they're going to be buyers or sellers. We know that there's some intrigue with regards to a team like the Texas Rangers, for example, as well. Those, I think, are some of the more interesting teams to take a look at moving forward.
Yeah, when you are looking at D-backs, it's possible that they're just a team that sits on their hands. Like, I think that Eugenio Suarez is one of the dudes that maybe almost definitively gets moved. I kind of think about like Isaac Paredes last year from the Tampa Bay Rays getting traded to the Cubs. Both teams are out of the mix and aren't really in playoff contention, but they really want something for that 1 year rental or the rest of the 3 months of his deal. And from that standpoint, I can definitely see a guy like that getting moved, but do a bunch of other guys in this lineup like a Josh Naylor get moved? Maybe. Merrill Kelly? Maybe. And I think it's really going to come down to how they actually perform against a team like the Astros here in this series.
Yep, absolutely. And I do think that that is going to be such an interesting game for Tuesday now that you set that up. Framber Valdez going up against Eduardo Rodriguez with the Astros right around about a -120 to a -122 favorite. And this just seems short considering Eduardo Rodriguez. He's been better since coming off the injury list, but it has been great for him. And for the Astros, it feels like this team has just gotten no respect all season long.
And the Astros lineup has been a very interesting one because they've had some serious boom moments and they've had some serious series of like not scoring any runs. And when you are looking at Eduardo Rodriguez, he is a guy that, in terms of the underlying numbers, he's actually looking a little bit promising in terms of maybe like a lot of positive regression on the way, but that positive regression hasn't really come to fruition over the last few starts here. And I do wonder if, maybe he's just a guy that ends up getting a change of scenery as well, and maybe that changes everything for him, but he's not ultimately a guy that I'm willing to back. At the same time, maybe take a stab at like a D-backs team total over. I get it, Framber Valdez is a very good pitcher, but this is a lineup right now that's really dialed in and really carrying them in a lot of different wins here.
Yeah, he certainly has been. Framber Valdez has been absolutely tremendous this season, and we'll say Isaac Paredes has been able to do a great job for the Houston Astros as well. And then I take a look at this team, and it's going to be very interesting to see what they do at the trade deadline because for the Mets, their pitching got off to a really nice start to the season. Bullpen is a little bit banged up, and as guys have gotten healthier, it feels like it's gotten worse for them because Paul Blackburn has not been great, and the guy that's going on the mound on Tuesday, boy. Frankie Montas had a 12 ERA in his minor league rehab starts. He's been a little bit better at the major league level, but this guy does not belong on a big league mound right now with the LA Angels. Kyle Hendricks probably doesn't either, and that's why you've got a total of 9 to 9.5 with the Angels as a +150 or so underdog. How do you take a look at this? Because I see two awful starting pitchers out there. I just get drawn to the plus money.
Tell us how you really feel, Greg. And listen, I'm right there with you, brother, because when you look at Frankie Montas, when you look at Kyle Hendricks, these are two guys that are guaranteed runs. And I will say this in defense of Kyle Hendricks' season portfolio so far, but he really hasn't had a ton of blow-up outings. It's just that every single time he takes the bump, he's guaranteed to give up something. And usually that something is 3 to 4 runs through 5 or 6 innings. And hey, sometimes if you feel like you can score 4 runs against the other starting pitcher, that's going to make you competitive in that game. And especially when you look at the Angels as a plus, 145 dog in this game, I am actually totally willing to buy in on a money line spot for the Angels because heck, 4 runs, forget that. Maybe it could be 7 runs through 3 innings against Frankie Montas in this one. And again, Kyle Hendricks doesn't really have those blow-up outings. He just always kind of gives up those 3 or 4 earned runs. And I feel like 3 or 4 earned runs tomorrow in that game could actually make the Angels competitive.
Yeah, absolutely, because the Angels can hit bombs, and boy, I do think that there might be some bombs off of Mr. Frankie Montas. Again, he has been absolutely awful this year. As joining me on the show, we've got Rob Donaldson, the opposite of that. He does great work with the Rob's Best Bet Show, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, and I take a look at this game, and I just don't understand why the Cardinals are so short in this game. I recognize that typically a team being like -150 or so on the road is considered a big favorite, but against a Colorado Rockies team with a guy in Bradley Blaylock with a 9.97 ERA, that's what you can expect to pay for like a foot-long sandwich at Subway. That's not great, to say the least. I mean, am I missing something, or does this just feel way too short for a Rockies team that they're still winning 25% of their games this year?
And I think it's one of those things where the Rockies, since the reset of the All-Star break, there's a lot of guys in this lineup that I feel like are maybe auditioning for their team that they're going to be playing for next week. And a guy like a Mickey Moniak, who's been absolutely on a heater for, I would say, even a month now at this point, he's kind of spearheading this lineup. And when you look at Eric Fetty, he is somebody that I think the Cardinals might just trade to say, dude, you're not even providing us anything at this point in the rotation. You need to go, because he has fallen off an absolute cliff this season. And this is kind of most of his career. But obviously, they expected a little bit more when they traded for him last trade deadline. And now I feel like when you're looking at this matchup, I say you blindly take the over and look at both starting pitchers. I look at both lineups actually hitting the ball pretty well as of late for the most part. And I think that runs could be aplenty in the early goings in that one.
Yep, absolutely. And man, it has been really wild what we've been seeing out of the Colorado Rockies this season in terms of the absolute sink. And to your point, Eric Freddy, it's been not a lot of swing and miss out of him this far this season. So that's interesting. And how do you gauge the Cardinals overall? Because you just said that the Cardinals might move them. They're sort of in that no man's land right now where they're 2 games above 500, not quite good enough to be in the playoffs. But as we know, we've seen the Cardinals go on some very, very big runs over the years.
Yeah, and I feel like the Cardinals are one of those teams right now that unless something kind of drastically changes over the next couple series here, I don't feel like they're going to be a team that builds up or sells off. I feel like they're going to be a team that retools because they have a lot of guys on 1-year deals and a lot of young players sort of waiting in the wings, if you will. And to an extent, when you have a Steven Matz who isn't even in the rotation, you have a guy like an Eric Fedde, you have a guy like a Miles Michaelis, I feel like you can move some pieces around, maybe bring up like a Michael McGreevy to fit it in the rotation, and all of a sudden you have this kind of new look roster that really didn't, sell off or change a whole lot, but maybe gives you a different look for the second half. And heck, maybe that's all the Cardinals need to actually make a run at this thing in terms of the wild card.
Yeah, with the St. Louis Cardinals, I think that they're such an interesting team to gauge, along with the Brewers, who says May 1st, their win percentage is right around 750, which I can't believe. How do you take a look at the Brewers, both with it being Jacob Misiorowski against Logan Gilbert, and them overall? Because, for the Brewers, I just have been feeling like for a long time this is not sustainable, and yet somehow they're sustaining it.
Yeah, they're sustaining it over 10 games to be exact, because they are 10-0 and on a 10-game win streak. And it's not against schmucks. It's been against the Dodgers. They're playing really good baseball in terms of the entire capsulation of can we score runs, can we pitch well in the starting rotation and in the bullpen. And yes, now what we know, especially you, Greg, as a Brewers fan, the Brewers over the years, when they've gotten a competitive roster, have just failed at hitting when the playoffs comes around. And I still feel like that's a dynamic that kind of looms over this team as we're kind of looking at a potential playoff run out of them. And unfortunately for them as well, the Cubs are a team with a ton of trade chips. They're going to be able to unload at this trade deadline if they so choose, and are going to be able to really build up their roster. I think the Brewers are going to have to be aggressive here, and that really hasn't been their MO over the past. They've always kind of targeted the Frankie Montoses of the world, or like an Andrew Vaughn off the AAA snide, and I don't think that's going to be able to kind of propel them to somewhere they haven't already seen in the past decade. And unfortunately, I don't really know how to gauge how aggressive this front office is actually going to be.
Yeah, it is really difficult to gauge. There's just really no way of telling what they're going to be able to do. So I do think that that's going to be fascinating. I do think that the Brewers are going to go for it more than they have in past years. They probably are not going to do a move like when they traded away Josh Hader a few years ago. I think that they learned their lesson there. But man, that is a team that has a lot of intrigue in general. And then the team on the flip side in the Seattle Mariners, I think they're an interesting team too. How do you take a look at their prospects moving forward? A bunch that has really hit it well on the road. They've got good starting pitching when it's healthy, but they just haven't been fully healthy this year.
Yeah, and we just talked about the Brewers have always had a great pitching staff, and whether it's the bullpen or the starting rotation, and now we're talking about the Brewers out in the AL essentially with the Seattle Mariners, because this is again a team that always has the pitching but can never hit. And it's crazy to say that they can never hit when you have a Jorge Polanco, a Randy Arozarena, Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, but this is still an anemic offense, and it's not just like T-Mobile impacting their bats. It's wherever they go, seemingly they are just a roller coaster on that side of the plate. And unfortunately, I think when you look at the Mariners, again, it comes down to the front office sort of holding this team back at every single trade deadline, because yes, they did acquire Randy Arozarena in a pretty crazy move a couple of years back, but outside of that, they haven't really gone for it in terms of the top end bats in the market. And again, this is a team that I would be willing to believe in if they were being aggressive, and it's just a matter of how that actually is going to play out in the end.
Yep, absolutely. And I do think that we've got ourselves a lot of fun that's going to be coming up on this Tuesday. Anything else that you're going to be looking to bet on this Tuesday, or anything else perhaps in the futures market with the trade deadline coming up that is catching your attention?
Well, the Yankees need a lot of rotational arms, and unfortunately for them, they're having to roll out guys that maybe shouldn't be starting games in Major League Baseball just yet. Cam Schlittler is kind of one of those prime examples where, not only is he feeling pressure to perform, but now he's feeling pressure of maybe like carrying the Yankees into a better position in the standings. And I don't think that's conducive to success. Tomorrow they're going up against the Blue Jays and Max Scherzer, and I feel like the Blue Jays could potentially just run ropshot over this series and really do well in this game in particular. I look for Addison Barger to have a really good game. He's swinging a really hot bat. And in terms of Cam Schlittler, maybe look at some player props in terms of his ERA or earned runs going higher than whatever given total you see on that line.
And if you do think that Schlittler is going to get lit up, is a total something that you look at with a total of 9? Because I feel like at this point we can pencil in Max Scherzer for 5 innings, 3 runs. Really not a lot more. Really not a lot less, because that's all he's done.
Yeah, him and Clayton Kershaw are kind of in the same boat of just giving us the 5 or 6 3-earned type of games, and that's why his ERA is sitting at a 4.7, which is pretty much equivalent to that. And I would look at maybe like a first 5 over in particular if you can find maybe a flat 4 or a 4.5, because I think either one of these guys could really get you more than halfway there, and both combined, maybe we even see like 6 or 7 runs.
Absolutely. I think that it's going to be a fun day of baseball on Tuesday, and I know that you, Rob, are doing a great job of handicapping it all. Let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Well, hey, Greg, it's always a blast talking ball with you, man, and I can't wait until we're talking post-trade deadline as well and just kind of seeing what these new teams look like. But for those who want to follow my Major League Baseball bets as the season plays out here, you can do so on Twitter/X at RobDFB, and also on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Rob Donaldson. But as always, Greg, I appreciate having me on, man.
It is always great to be able to get Rob aboard. He does such an amazing job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball, and every single time he joins me, lends such great insights. So big thanks to Rob for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Tuesday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family podcast. It's always great to be joined by Rob Donaldson, who does such great work with the show/podcast Rob's Best Bets. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and did so once again today. So big thanks to Rob for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Tuesday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at gunit_81, and we're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, then the Interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So how about if we do get things started with this first game of 9:51, 9:52 on the card. The San Diego Padres, they are on the road. They're facing off against the Miami Marlins. Edward Cabrera is on the bump for Miami, and it is going to be Stephen Kolek who gets a start for the San Diego Padres. As I'm recording this, pretty much every place had this off the board, as a lot of people did not know if Kolek was going to be getting the start or not, but I've got my handicap. I did set the Miami Marlins as a minus 108 favorite, so I'm going to be willing to go up to a minus 107 there, and then a plus 109 or higher looking at the Padres. I did set a total of an 8.1, so 8 or less I'm going to be in on the over, and 8.5 or higher to the under. Edward Cabrera has finally been able to put it together as a big league pitcher. He's always had really good deception, really good swing and miss stuff, but the issue with him was always his command. And it's not to say that he's been amazing this year, 3.3 walks per 9 innings, but a whole heck of a lot better than his career average of 4.7 walks per 9 innings. He's still getting 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, 361 ERA, 370 fielding dependent, experienced a little bit of regression in his last start against the Baltimore Orioles, giving up 4 runs, but you take a look at what this guy has been able to do overall since a shaky first month of the season, and it has been absolutely superb. The last start they had against the Baltimore Orioles, first time since April that he given up 3+ runs in a start. You date it back since the beginning of May. He's got a 2.54 ERA. He's getting a couple fewer strikeouts per 9 innings than normal, about 9.3, 9.4 strikeouts per 9 innings, but overall has been able to do a solid job. And then for Merkulik, he had that complete game they threw against Colorado Rockies earlier in the season, but boy, Rockies have been rough. Not a lot of deception here. 6.5 strikeouts and 2.9 walks per 9 innings, but limits hard contact, giving up 0.9 home runs per 9 innings. 4.24 ERA, 4.22 fielding dependent. He is backed up by the better bullpen, as for the San Diego Padres, this has been a top 7 team in terms of bullpen ERA. This, despite the fact that Robert Suarez has been a little bit of a disaster for them recently. You've had the likes of Adrian Morejon, Jason Adam, David Morgan all be able to supply a sub-3 ERA. Relatively good innings out of Jeremiah Estrada as well. For the Padres, this has been a pretty pedestrian offense this season. Not to say that they've been completely awful, but right now they're 24th in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. They are averaging 3.9 runs per game away from home. This despite the fact that you've got Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., Gavin Sheets. I'll give you at least a 260 average. I'll give you at least 14 home runs. Tatis along with Machado, both right in that neighborhood about a 350 on base. And then you've had Jake Cronenworth give you above a 340 on base. He's been able to move line. It's been a case where the ancillary pieces have not been great. The catcher spot has been brutal for this team. They rely upon Jason Hayward to be able to step up in the outfield. It was so bad that they had to DFA him. Now they're looking to Trenton Brooks to be able to give them some production, and he has not done any sort of that. So that's an issue, though. I will say Xander Bogaerts up to a 344 on base. That's a little bit encouraging. And for the Miami Marlins, this has actually been a bullpen that has been able to come along for the ride. At the beginning part of the season, these guys were absolutely terrible when they were throwing out their likes of George Soriano and company, but like Bakar has been able to do a solid job being able to supply you with a sub-325 ERA. Ronnie Enriquez, Anthony Bender, these guys have done a nice job just being able to hold down the fort in general. And for this bullpen, you take a look at everything since June 1st, and they actually have been one of the better bullpens out there in all of baseball. Tyler Phillips has also been pretty solid for them, 6th in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA in that time span. It has been a case where this team doesn't supply a lot of offense, bottom 5 in the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. This is despite the fact that Kyle Sowers is up to 21 home runs, above a 350 on base. Xavier Edwards, no power whatsoever, but he's giving you darn near 350 on base. You've had AC Sanchez be able to give you a little bit of power, but other than Kyle Sowers, you've got Otto Lopez with 11 home runs, Augustin Ramirez, really not much else other than that. So did set a lower total, 8 or less to the over, 8.5 or higher the under. And with the Padres, plus 109 or higher, going to be taking a shot on the money line there, and then minus 107 or better, looking at the Miami Marlins. 953, 954 on the card. The Cincinnati Reds, and yes, we are into Cincinnati. They're going to be facing off against the Washington Nationals, as Brad Lord says, "Oh Lord, I'm getting another start," and Chase Burns is on the bump for the Reds. Reds between minus 128 to minus 132 favorites, plus 108 to a plus 116. That number on Washington. 9 is the total. Under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105. And I did set the Reds at a minus 138. I do like them on the money line. Chase Burns had that just absolutely atrocious start a few weeks ago against the Red Sox where he didn't make it out of the first inning. Past that, this guy has been relatively solid. That start really did warp his numbers entirely. He's getting 14 strikeouts per 9 innings. He does need to learn how to be able to pitch at the big league level. He's given up 3 home runs in his first 4 starts across 16 innings, not delivering a lot of length, but I do think that he's going to be able to be a really, really good pitcher moving forward, and I do think that he's doing a good job finding his sea legs. Also going against a Washington Nationals team that has been one of the worst in all of baseball at being able to hit at home is going to be able to help out quite a bit as well. For the Washington Nationals, they do find themselves 23rd in the big leagues with about 3.9 runs per game at home, and for some reason, you've only got 2 guys on the roster with more than 3 home runs at home this far this season. Like CJ Abrams overall has been able to hit 13 home runs this season. He's been able to do a nice job of being able to supply that power, but only 3 of them have been at home this season. You've got Nathaniel Lowe's up to 15 bombs, but he's only hitting at 230. James Wood has been the constant for the team, both at home and on the road. 375 on base, 24 home runs. He has been really good. Keeper Ruiz being banged up has hurt this team, but he wasn't giving you too much on base either. You've had Ahmed Rosario be in and out of the lineup all season long, hitting at 275. Not a lot of power, but he finds a way on. But here's the issue that you got with Washington Nationals. They're right now right there at the bottom of the National League in terms of bullpen ERA. There is no reliability here whatsoever. Even Kyle Finnegan is starting to poop the bed for this team. Brad Lord was one of their better relievers. He and Andrew Chafin were pretty much the only 2 guys in this bullpen with a ERA below a 360, and now Lord is being pressed into action. And when Brad Lord has been a starter, it just hasn't been the same. He's been posting up an ERA above a 5 when he has been a starter. When he's been coming out of the bullpen, he's been much more consistent. And then you've got the likes of Jackson Rutledge, Jose Ferrer, Zach Brzezinski, all these guys with a ERA above a 5. So I do think that for the Reds, he should be able to do a nice job, be able to put bat to ball, even though you don't necessarily have a ton of crazy contact with this team. Obviously, Ellie De La Cruz has been a magnificent 18-plus home runs, a 350 on base, all those stolen bases. And then you've got Austin the Say's kid returning to the fold for this team as he's been able to supply this team with 9 home runs at a limited amount of at-bats. Spencer Steer, Matt McLean are both up to 11 home runs. So for McLean, he just hasn't been able to give you a whole heck of a lot with regards to his on-base. Tyler Stevenson is starting to move the line a little bit more as well. TJ Friedel, 365 on base. I do think that in the end, the Reds, even though the likes of Christian Encarnacion and Strand have not necessarily given you much, they do find a way to be able to get to Lord and get the job done. So I told 9.3, like the over, and the Reds on the money line up to a minus 138. 9:55, 9:56 on the card. The San Francisco Giants are on the road facing off against the Atlanta Braves. As for the Bravos, it is Davis Daniel who gets the start for them, and Landon Roop goes for the Giants. And Giants are finding themselves as a very slim favorite, between minus 110 to a minus 115, and then minus 105, even money as well to a minus 110. That number on Atlanta, 9.5 is the total. Under is minus 120, and the over is even. And for the Braves, I made them the minus 108 favorite. I'm going to be willing to roll the dice here. This despite the fact that Landon Roop has been very good recently. For the Giants, 4 earned runs allowed across his 5 starts. He has been able to give you a 3.28 ERA overall for the season, 8.5 strikeouts, so a little bit over 3.5 walks per 9 innings, but just 0.8 home runs per 9 innings, so he's been mitigating our contact. And on the flip side, you got a guy in Davis Daniel who at the minor league level, 3.52 ERA, about 1 home run allowed per 9 innings. He hasn't been lighting the world on fire. He also hasn't been lighting his team on fire. He's pitched 5 innings at the big league level this year. He's given up 1 run. Not necessarily going to give you a whole bunch of swings and misses, but not going to give up a lot of hard contact. And you've got 2 offenses that frankly have just struggled this season in comparison to what we were expecting. The Giants 23rd in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. The Braves 21st in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. And Rafael Devers has just done nothing for the Giants, hitting barely above a 200 with 2 home runs entering into the game on Monday since San Francisco picked him up. I think that was either 28 or 30 games ago. So it's a large sample size of over 100 at-bats, and he just has not produced for this team. Jung-Ho Lee is not necessarily doing a great job of getting on base for the San Francisco Giants either. You've been able to get some relatively good production out of Matt Chapman since he's come off the injured list. The batting average isn't there, but north of a 340 on base, 13 home runs, and then you've had Willy Adames actually really pick it up. I will give Willy Adames a little bit of credit where it is due here. He's been able to give the team now like 7 home runs over the last month or so. He's still having a miserable season, but at the very least it's looking a little bit better for him. But someone like a Patrick Bailey hitting a 205 at the bottom lineup has been rough. And for the Atlanta Braves, I mean, the overall meat of lineup is not bad. Drake Baldwin's been great, hitting a 280 with 11 home runs at the catcher spot. Ron Acuna Jr. above a 425 on base, 13 home runs. Matt Olson north of a 360 on base, 18 home runs. Sean Murphy not hitting for a ton of average, but 16 home runs. Here's where it goes wrong though. Nick Allen, Alex Verdugo, when he's been out there, they haven't used him in quite a while. Michael Harris, all 3 of these guys are hitting a 236 or lower with a sub 300 on base. In the case of Harris, he has 7 home runs, but he has given you less than a 245 on base. And then for Allen and Verdugo, a combined 0 home runs this season. They're getting back Jurickson Profar. That should help them out a little bit. But now for the Braves, their bullpen has gone down the toilet bowl. They've had Dasbell Hernandez at the minor league level, and why, I don't know, because he's actually been a really good reliever for them. And then you've got the likes of a Aaron Bummer, who has been a pretty big bummer for the team throughout the season. The Dodd father, Dylan Dodd, is up to a 375 ERA. Anya de los Santos is starting to struggle. It's been a terrible season for Horacio Iglesias, and for the San Francisco Giants, while they are number 1 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, Camilo Duvall, Randy Rodriguez, Tyler Rogers, Eric Miller, all of these guys have been able to give you a 3.25 ERA or better. We have seen quite a bit of regression with that. If you look at things ever since June 1st, for the San Francisco Giants, more like 20th in terms of bullpen ERA. That said, I do think that Roop gives you a good start. I think the Daniels holds down the fort, and I do think that the Braves get the job done here. So I tell at 80.9, I like the under and the Braves on the money line. 957, 958 on the card. The St. Louis Cardinals are on the road against the Colorado Rockies, as it is Brandon Blaylock on the bump for the Rockies, and Eric Fetty-Wap goes for the St. Louis Cardinals. Cardinals minus 142 to minus 150 favorites, plus 122 to a plus 130. That number on Colorado, 12 is the total, over is minus 120, and the under is even. I set the Cardinals at a minus 218 on the money line. I'd be willing to go up to a minus 139 on the run line. I don't know what the run lines are as of right now, but considering the money lines are between minus 140 to minus 150, I can guarantee you it is below a minus 130. So we are going to be in on the Cardinals run line. Just put it to you that way. As for Brandon Blaylock, a nice whopping 9.96 ERA. He's getting 3.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he's allowing like 2.5 home runs per 9 innings. Less than savory, to say the least. And it's not like Eric Fetty Wap has been the Mona Lisa Vito of pitching or anything like that. He's right now giving you a 4.83 ERA. This does drop to a 4.24 on the road. On the road, he's been giving up about 0.8 home runs per 9 innings. No deception whatsoever. 5.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. So need a bit more there. He's been also issuing about 4.2 walks per 9 innings, so that's been a little bit of an issue there, but still, he's backed up by a much better bullpen as the Colorado Rockies back in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. This despite the fact that Jake Bird, Juan Mejia, Victor Vodnik have been able to give you a 4.25 ERA or better, but for the Colorado Rockies, this is still a lineup that even at home, they're really not generating a lot of offense. Like, Colorado is supposed to be a cheap code for offense. 4.2 runs per game, that's in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of runs per game at home, as Ryan McMahon has just had a season to forget. Hunter Goodman's been solid, 18 home runs, but I believe 12 of those home runs have actually come on the road, so he's actually been a little bit worse with the power at home. Ryan McMahon does have 10 home runs at home this far this season, hitting about a 250, but that's still down for his standards. You've got Jordan Beck, Mickey Moniak, both hitting above a 300 at home, with Moniak giving you 9 home runs, but I mean, even someone like a Kyle Farmer sitting a $167 at home. It's been miserable for Orlando Arcia, no matter where he's been playing. And then you've got a St. Louis Cardinals team that they do a nice job of just finding a way to generate offense, despite the fact that they don't have that true power hitter. They don't have a single guy on the roster right now that has been able to give you north of 12 home runs, as you've got a trio of guys with 12 home runs: Alec Burleson, Wilson Contreras, Lars Nootbaar right now dealing with an injury, and then Nolan Arenado has 10 home runs, but he's been way down for his standards. You do have, though, Burleson, who I mentioned before, along with Brendan Donovan, both hitting above 290. Now you get Ivan Herrera off the injured list. He's been really your best power hitter, and he's been hitting for a 383 on base. Yoel Pozo, the backup catcher, has been pretty solid as well. And for the Cardinals, this bullpen has been relatively solid throughout the season. Ryan Elsley was blowing some saves towards the beginning part of the season, but they're holding down the fort since June 1st, 8th in terms of open ERA. Likes Phil Matone, Kyle Leahy, throw in there Riley O'Brien. These guys give you a sub 3.25 ERA. Should be enough for the Cardinals to be able to get the job done in convincing fashion. I like the Cardinals run line. Semi-total 11.9 as well. The 12, just a little bit too rich for my blood. In on the under, along with the Cardinals run line. At 59, 960 on the card. The Baltimore Orioles are on the road against the Cleveland Guardians. Joey Cantillo is on the bump for the Guardians. Brandon Young goes for the Orioles, and the Orioles are a mid-size underdog here. You're going to be finding them between plus 110 to a plus 118, minus 130 to minus 137 is that number. On Cleveland, 8.5 is the total. The over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. Plus 150 is that run line number on the Cleveland Guardians, currently at FanDuel. If we can get down to a minus 124 on the Guardians, I'll be looking there. Or if we can get to a plus 125 or better with the Orioles. So it's a little bit of wait-and-see mode, and if I can get a Guardians plus 160 run line, I'd be willing to take a shot there. So this is a little bit more TBD on the opening numbers, but we should be able to see some line movement as Joey Cantillo, I'm lukewarm on him. The swing and miss stuff and the strikeouts are really good with Joey Cantillo. For Cantillo, 11.9 strikeouts per 9 innings, but also 1.5 home runs and 4.4 walks allowed per 9 innings. He has been utilized as a bullpen piece and a starter in his last 2 starts. 7 runs allowed in 9 1/3 innings. Both of those were on the road, but also against the White Sox and the Houston Astros, so that's not necessarily what you want to see there. Good news is he's going against an Orioles team that has just been struggling in terms of their offense. For the Orioles, only averaging about 3.6 to 3.7 runs per game away from home. That is a bottom 5 mark out there in all baseball. And then for Brandon Young, 7.52 ERA at the big league level. I do think that he's going to be able to figure it out, as at the minor leagues, he was very good, but 3+ runs allowed in 4 of his last 5 starts. He's been giving up 2.4 home runs per 9 innings, but this is also a Cleveland Guardians lineup that's in the bottom 6 in all baseball in terms of runs per game. So you've got a pair of teams that are very much struggling there. Now for the Orioles, you've been able to get just across the board some solid power. You don't necessarily have that one masher, as you've got right now 6 different guys with at least 10 home runs, but nobody above 13. As Jackson Holliday and Cedric Mullins both have 13 home runs. And then Gunnar Henderson, Ryan O'Hearn, both hitting at 280 or higher, with O'Hearn about a 375 on base, Ramon Laureano a 340 on base. And you've been able to get some good production out of Jordan Westberg, a home run every about 18 at-bats. He's giving you about a 260 average, so these guys have been relatively solid. What's not solid is this Orioles bullpen. Bottom 7 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Right when it looks like Sir Anthony Dominguez has figured it out, he's once again struggling. He, Gregory Soto, Andrew Kittredge, all between about a 365 to a 385 ERA. Yunier Cano, don't you know, this guy's been terrible with north of a 4.5 ERA this season. Scott Blewett has not been good for them. So, I mean, it's just been rough to say the least. And This Cleveland Guardians bullpen, just a far cry from what they were a season ago. Though Emmanuel Clase has been able to really round back into form for the Guardians. Last year, they were number 1 in the league in terms of bullpen ERA, and this year they're 11th, so they're starting to improve after it was a brutal start to the season. Though Hunter Gaddis, north of a 3.5 ERA, he's been having his struggles. Jacob Junis has been neither here nor there this season, but getting Eric Zabrowski back off the injured list, that's been able to help them out, as he's been, since coming back, it's only been 7 2/3 innings, it's only allowed 1 run, and then Nick Enright, Kobe Allard, these have been nice finds, sub 3.25 ERA out of them. But for the Cleveland Guardians, the biggest issue that you've got right now is the lineup, because the top guy in Jose Ramirez is great, 19 home runs, 365 on base, and then Stephen Kwan hitting for a 285. He's been solid as a leadoff man, but you've got just so many guys right now that are hitting at 215 or lower. Kyle Manzardo, Daniel Schneemann, Will Wilson, Bo Naylor, David Fry, Brian Rocchio, John Kenzie Noel, Austin Hedges. Like, there is nobody that is hitting for any average. It's not like they're getting on base. Sub 292 on base for all these guys. Manzardo has 15 home runs, but you just need a bit more there, and then it's not like you've been necessarily having the world lit on fire by the Orioles either. So it's an interesting spot here. If we can get down to a minus 124 or better, looking at the Guardians, plus 125 or better, the Orioles. And then I did set a total here of an 8.7. So right now, seeing what we've got in that 8.5, I'm in on the over. 961, 962 on the card. The New York Yankees are on the road against the Toronto Blue Jays. Max Scherzer goes for the Jays. And it is old Cameron Schlittler who's going to be on the bump for the Yankees. That's a great name, by the way. And for the Yankees, they are a slight underdog here. You're going to be getting them between even money to plus 105, minus 115 to minus 125. That number on Toronto 9 is the total. Over and under, both at minus 110. And for the Yankees, I made them a minus 113 favorite. I'm going to trust in Schlittler here. He was really good at the minor league level. He's had a cup of coffee thus far at the big leagues, but I mean, the swing and miss stuff, I do believe is going to be very rock solid for him, and I do think that he's going to be able to go out there and give you a relatively good performance. As at first start, he allowed 3 runs in 5 1/3 innings, but did punch out 7 when he was at the minor league level this season. He was absolutely fanning guys, as he was able to get over at the minor league level, 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, giving up a half home run per 9. So he really does impress me. And for Scherzer, he's at an advanced age where he's, I would say steady is probably the proper word. A 4.70 ERA. He has made 5 starts, 23 innings. He's allowed 12 runs. He's going to go out there. He's going to give up 3 runs in 5 innings. That's pretty much what you could expect out of him. Still getting 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's just giving up too much of the deep ball, as he has allowed thus far, I believe, 5 home runs in 23 innings. So that's been a little bit rough. But since coming off the injured list, he has given up either 2 or 3 runs in all of his starts. He has went north of 5 innings only once. So that's pretty much what it's been. And he is backed up by a bullpen that is in the top 10 in terms of ERA. The Killer Bees and Braden Fisher, Brandon Little, these 2 guys are giving you a sub 3 ERA, so you do like to see that. And for the Blue Jays, you've had Uriel Rodriguez be a really good long guy. He's been able to give you a sub 3 ERA. They've even had him close out a few games as well. Now it's been hit or miss with Chad Green and Jeff Hoffman in the bullpen. For the Blue Jays, all of a sudden they're averaging about 5.3 runs per game at home. That is towards the top of the American League, with, ironically enough, the New York Yankees. George Springer leading the way, 17 bombs, 370 on base. And then you've got Addison Barger, Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr. All 3 of these guys between 12 and 14 home runs, allowing at least a 272. Guerrero, 385 on base. Don't call his name. Alejandro Kirk is sitting above a 300. Ernie Clement is moving the line. So, I mean, this is an offense that's starting to put it together. And for the Yankees, I believe 13 out of their last 17 games entering into Monday, they had scored at least 5 runs in. So, I mean, for the Yankees, you've had a nice offensive outburst with this unit. Aaron Judge, 36 home runs, 458 on base. Just absolutely incredible, but, I mean, it's more than just him. You've had a trio of guys, and Trent Grisham, Cody Bellinger, Jazz Chisholm, all give you 17 home runs. Ben Rice, along with Austin Wells, up to 14 home runs. So, Rice has been really not doing a great job moving the line along with Wells, but Chisholm, he's up to about a 343 on base. John Carlos Stanton has come back, and in a small sample size, he's looking relatively solid. He's sitting above a 280. He's been able to find his sea legs once again. The big thing for the Yankees is his bullpen, as Luke Weaver, since coming out the injured list, has not been himself. Last week or 2, it looks like he's starting to get back to that normal form, as he, along with Tim Hill, have been able to give you a sub 3 ERA, but They've been dealing with the injury to Yuri De Los Santos. Fernando Cruz is right now dealing with an injury as well. Those are two of your main bullpen pieces. So they've been going to the likes of JT Brubaker, Mark Leiter Jr., Scott Effross. These guys with an ERA above a 4. Ian Hamilton has been all sorts of inconsistent as well. So it makes for an interesting spot. I did set my total 9.2. I like the over, and I think that the Yankees slug their way to victory. I trust them on the money line. 963, 964 on the betting board. The Chicago White Sox are on the road. They're facing off against the Tampa Bay Rays. We do know that it's going to be Drew Rasmussen who's going to be going for the Rays. As of right now, it's old TBD on the bump for the Chicago White Sox. So this game is presently off the board, and currently the CBS projection is one Mr. Davis Martin. And if you do get Davis Martin, I set the Rays at a minus 229 on the money line. I'd be willing to go up to a minus 117 on that run line. So we need at least a plus 230 to take a shot on the White Sox, and then made a total of an 8.8. So 8.5 or less. I'm going to be in on the over, a 9 or higher the under. Now, it is very unknown as to what we're going to get out of the White Sox. Probably not going to be changing too much if you get a different starter like a Mike Vasil or something like that. For Martin, he doesn't necessarily give up a ton of deep balls. He doesn't hurt himself with too many walks, but he gives you no strikeouts whatsoever. Probably not going to be able to give you a ton of length with this being his first start off the injured list if he indeed actually does make this start as well. So, there's just not a lot to expect, whether that be to the positive or the negative, and you just don't have a lot with regards to the Chicago White Sox team, because this is an offense that has been about as offensive as Ned Flanders this year. On the road, they're averaging 3.4 runs per contest. You've got few guys have been able to give you double-figure amount of homers: Miguel Vargas, Luis Robert, and Andrew Benintendi. And for Robert, hitting below the Mendoza line of 200, along with so many other guys sitting at 225 or lower. Michael A. Taylor, Josh Rojas, Joshua Palacios. You just have not been able to get a lot of consistency with this lineup. Lennon Sosa has been able to about a 270 with Edgar Quijano, also hitting about a 270, but Quijano gives you absolutely no pop whatsoever. And for the Chicago White Sox bullpen, they still find themselves in the bottom 10 in terms of bullpen ERA. Now, Mike Vasil might be pitching quite a few innings in this one. He's their long guy that was getting starts while Jonathan Cannon was on the injured list. He's supplying a sub 265 ERA, and you've been able to get some good production out of Tyler Gilbert as well. We can see a little bit of him in this game as well. Dan Altavilla, Steven Wilson, both supplying a sub 215 ERA, but when you get into the likes of Brandon Iser, Jordan Leisure, throw in there as well, even someone like a Grant Taylor, these guys are posting up an ERA above 4. It's not been great, to say the least. And then for the Tampa Bay Rays, this is a top 10 team in terms of runs per game. You've got Junior Caminero, Brandon Lau, who have been very, very loud with their offense. A combined 44 home runs. Caminero hitting for about a 260, doesn't draw any walks whatsoever, but you know what? He's been able to do a nice job putting back the ball. Jonathan Aranda, nearly a 390 on base with 11 home runs. And Yandy Diaz, last 65 days, is hitting above a 350, 15 home runs. He has been remarkable for this team. And Chandler Simpson, Jose Calabreo. Between the two guys, a total of 59 stolen bases. Calabreo not hitting for a lot of average at a 220, but a 314 on base. And then Simpson is hitting above a 300. I do think that for the Tampa Bay Rays, you're going to be able to get a good start here out of Drew Rasmussen, who's not giving you a whole lot of swing and miss or anything like that, but he's doing a great job of not hurting himself. He only gives up about 2.1, 2.2 walks per 9 innings, 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but less than a home run per 9, 286 ERA, backed up by a bullpen that has been a little bit above league average in terms of their ERA, but the top guys are very good. Pete Fairbanks, Garrett Clevenger, Eric Orze, Manuel Rodriguez, all supplying a sub 3 ERA. Do think that the Rays should be a sizable favorite. We'll go up to a minus 117 on that run line, plus 230 or higher. Looking at the White Sox money line, then in after less, in on the over 9 or higher, the under. 965, 966 on the card. The A's are on the road against the Texas Rangers. Jacob deGrom is on the bump for the Rangers, and right now this is off the board because for the Athletics, we don't know they're going to be throwing. This is a case where if you look at CBS Sports, probably some sort of bullpen game for the Athletics. Right now they're lining up JT Ginn, as I like to call him, JT Ginn and Juice for this team. He's been utilized as like a long guy, and I do think that that's sort of going to be like the situation here. I think that you probably get a piggyback with like JT Ginn. Maybe you get a little bit out of like Sean Newcomb, Michael Kelly, guys like this. So, I mean, poo-poo platter of pitchers. It's pretty much how I'm looking at the Athletics. And for a poo-poo platter of pitchers against Jacob deGrom, I've got the Texas Rangers as a very sizable favorite. I set them at a minus 216 on the money line, so we need at least a plus 217 to be able to take a shot on the Athletics. I'd be willing to lay up to a minus 110 with regards to this Rangers run line, and I made a total of an 8.2, 8 or less. I'm in on the over, 8.5 or higher. The under, this has just been a no good, very bad, terrible Athletics bullpen is. Right now, they have a 5.42 ERA that is dead last in the American League. Now, a little bit better when they're on the road because Sacramento has just been yielding runs like wine. And if you do indeed get quite a bit out of JT Ginn, well, it's not been great. 491 ERA, 476 fielding dependent, gets a lot of strikeouts, but also 2.2 home runs allowed per 9 innings. And I mean, there's just so many guys in this Athletics bullpen that are just so unreliable. Sean Newcomb, I mentioned before, along with Michael Kelly, these are pretty much the lone two guys in the bullpen that are supplying a sub-3 ERA. Jack Perkins has as well, but he's only made 5 appearances, so not a lot there. Mason Miller even has north of a 4 ERA. And then you got the likes of Grant Holman when he's been out there, Mitch Spence as he's been dealing with injury, as well as Beto. These guys have been rough, and you might see a little bit of Beto as well. He's a bit of a long guy, and for the Athletics, it's been a relatively solid offense. I'm not going to call it amazing, as they're right now about league average, 18th in the league in terms of runs per game, but Brent Rooker, 21 bombs, about a 350 on base. You still have Jacob Wilson hitting about a 325. Tyler Soderstrom is up to 18 home runs. Along Nick Kurtz, and Nick Kurtz, a home run every 12 at-bats. This guy has been great. And you've been able to get a little bit of something out of like a Luis Urias, who's been able to give you a 320 on base. Shea Langoliers, not aiming for average, but Shea bangs 14 home runs this season. And for the Texas Rangers, all of a sudden the offense has been able to get online. For the Rangers, they're averaging more than 5.5 runs per game since the beginning of the month of July. Had a very odd start. They're starting to taper off a little bit, but at the very least, it's something because you've had the offense that all season long has been anemic. As a matter of fact, you've got a quartet of guys, Wyatt Langford, Josh Young, Marcus Semien, Adolis Garcia, that for the season, in between about a 231 to a 237. Pretty much all these guys, aside from Josh Young, do have a double-figure amount of homers, but nobody with more than 15 home runs this season. Corey Seager is really starting to heat up as well. He was just absolutely awful when he was initially coming off the injured list, but you take a look at things ever since the beginning of the month of July, he has been able to supply the scene with above a 425 on base. And you just look at the last 30 days in general, 453 on base, so he's been able to really pick it up. And when it comes to Jacob deGrom, he has allowed 3 earned runs or fewer in pretty much every one of his last 15 starts. He's had a few starts where he's given up approximately 3, and I do think that he's doing for a little bit of regression. Jacob deGrom is not getting quite the amount of strikeouts that he was earlier in his career. For Jacob deGrom, 9.1 strikeouts per 9 innings. His career is about 11 strikeouts per 9 innings, but still only giving up 2 walks per 9 innings, still only allowing 1 home run per 9 as well. So he has been very, very sharp, and I do think that he's going to be able to stymie the Athletics here, and I do think that for the Rangers, also having the number 1 bullpen in terms of ERA since June 1st is a big kicker for this team, as well as you've had so many guys be able to step up. Jacob Latz is a long guy that was seeing a start a few days ago, and he was able to do a rock-solid job there, and then you've been able to have these guys that have been nice mix-and-match pieces like a Robert Garcia, Hobie Milner, Chris Martin. These guys have been able to give you an ERA of 3 or better. Sean Armstrong has been pretty solid as well, so circumstance where at a minus 215 or better, looking at the Rangers money line, though I'm going to look up more at the run line of a minus 110 or better, plus 217 or higher, looking at the Athletics, and then 8 or less like the over 8.5 or higher, the under 967, 968 on the card. The Detroit Tigers are on the road against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Mitch Keller is on the bump for the Pirates, and Casey Mize goes for the Tigers. Tigers are a mid-sized favorite here. You're going to be getting them between a minus 135 to a minus 144, and between plus 118 to a plus 124. That number on Pittsburgh 8 is the total. Under is minus 120, over is even. I did set the Tigers at a minus 133, so we could use this to go down by about 3 or so pennies, but if it does, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the money line, and if you're looking to lay a run half with the Tigers, you'll find that at a plus 125. I was willing to go plus 123 or higher, so if I had to play this right now, I'd be looking at the run line. That's going to be a little bit TBD. I probably would rather lay a little bit of a chalkier money line rather than the run line, just because I do think that this is going to be a bit of a lower scoring game. Mitch Keller throughout his career has always been a little bit better when he has been at home rather than on the road. Now, he's had some reverse splits this season. This season, he's actually been a little bit better when he has been away from Pittsburgh, but take a look at things ever since he busted into the big league level. 3.99 home ERA, 4.91 ERA on the road. On the road, giving up about 1.4 home runs per 9 innings at home. That's more about a 0.8 home runs per 9 inning rate. Meanwhile, for Casey Mize, he has been rock solid this year. Not necessarily getting a ton of deception, 7.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, but a 3.15 ERA because he's only giving up 2.2 walks and 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. Closer to a 3.90 fielding dependent, coming off of a rough last start against Seattle where he gave up 6 runs, but Prior to that, he had given up a combined 5 earned runs in his previous 4 starts, and he is backed up by a bullpen that is currently shaky. Since June 1st, the Detroit Tigers have actually been a bottom 8 team in terms of bullpen ERA. I think that they're going to find it once again, as Tommy Kahnle has just been miserable for the team, and then whenever they've thrown out their Carlos Hernandez, that's not a guy that is too reliable, to say the least, but you've been able to get good innings out of Wolves, who's been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. You've actually been able to get some relatively good relief out of Diedrich Enns. What he's been a reliever was a failure of a starter. Chase Lee is starting to regress. He's posting up a 3.60 ERA, but Brendan Hennefy, Brent Herter, these guys have been able to do a solid job as well. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, this is a bullpen that has been relatively average overall for the season. Got off to a rough start. They really surged towards June into very early July. We're starting to see a little bit of regression there, but you've had quite a few guys be able to come in there, give you a sub 325 ERA. Caleb Ferguson is starting to poop the bed a little bit for this team, but you've got David Benhar, who's no longer pooping the bed, along with Dennis Santana, Isaac Madsen, Braxton Ashcraft. I'll give you a 275 ERA or better. The problem for the Pirates is this offense is absolutely terrible. They are currently dead last in the big leagues in terms of runs per game now, averaging closer to about 3.8 runs per game at home compared to 2.8 on the road, but you've got right now 3 guys on the roster with more than 4 home runs, and we're past the All-Star break. These guys have played nearly 100 games. They've got 3 guys on the roster with more than 4 home runs. You've got Oneil Cruz, Brian Reynolds, and Andrew McCutchen. And Andrew McCutchen's at 8 home runs with about a 334 on base. And you've got nobody moving the line for this team. Oneil Cruz, along with Jared Trollo, Alexander Canario, Henry Davis. These guys are hitting a 220 or lower. They're really not giving you too much on base. Cruz is up to about 317 on base, but still expect more there. Gabriel Hayes, 2 home runs with a 284 on base. Thanks for being as useful as a poopy flavored lollipop. And then for the Tigers, post All-Star break, it's been a little bit rough for them on offense, but overall still a top 8 offense in the big leagues. Now the Gary Carpenter injury is starting them, but Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green entered into the series, both with 21 plus bombs, Green up to 25 home runs himself, both giving you between about a 330 to a 340 on base. Zach McKinstry, about a 360 on base. Gleyber Torres has been able to do a nice job along with Javi Baez of hitting above a 270, and in the case of Torres, 390 on base as well. You've had some good production out of Wencio Perez since coming off the injured list as well, so I do think that for the Tigers, they should be able to go out there, get the job done. As of right now, looking at that plus 125 run line, but would like to see this go down to a minus 130, minus 132. That'll put me up on the Tigers money line, and then did set my total 7.8, so here at the 8, I like the under. 969, 970 on the card. It is the Boston Red Sox on the road against the Philadelphia Phillies, as Christopher Sanchez is on the bump for the Phils, and you've got Mr. Richard Fitz, who's on the bump for the Boston Red Sox, and the Red Sox are finding themselves as pretty sizable underdogs. You're going to be getting them in that neighborhood of a plus 170 to a plus 180. Meanwhile, minus 195 to a minus 208. That number on Philadelphia. In half is the total. The over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. And if you're looking at that initial run line opener, right now we're finding that at a plus 102 on the Phillies. I was willing to go up to a minus 103 on that run line, so pretty much even money or better. I'm willing to take a shot on that Philadelphia Phillies run line for Christopher Sanchez. He's just having an absolutely remarkable season. His strikeouts per 9 rate is above a 10. He's done a nice job of being able to keep the walks down. He's keeping the ball in the yard. He's really checking all the boxes for a rock-solid pitcher with that 250 ERA and a half a home run allowed per 9 innings. He has given up approximately 1 run in each out of his last 5 starts, going at least 6 innings at every single one of them. Now, he is backed up by a bullpen that's all sorts of brutal, but good news is, once again, with Sanchez being able to fill as many innings as he is, you're not going to need as much of that bullpen, as Ryan Kerkering has pretty much been the lone guy in this bullpen for the Philadelphia Phillies that has been able to supply a sub-3 ERA. You've had Matt Strahm, Max Lazer both be able to pick it up a little bit. Both of these guys below a 350 with regards to their ERA, but man, it's been rough for the likes of a Tanner Banks. Joe Ross has been miserable with above a 5 ERA, and Jordan Romano, man, this guy's fallen just completely down the toilet bowl. But for the Philadelphia Phillies, they're averaging more than 5 runs per game at home. This is despite the fact that Kyle Schwarber is the only guy that's really ripping the cover off the ball. Do have a quartet of guys between 10 and 13 home runs. Bryce Harper, Max Kepler, Trey Turner, and Nick Castellanos. In the case of Castellanos, Turner, and Harper, they're all in between about a 268 to 288, and Harper about a 378 on base, but Kyle Schwarber, 32 bombs, 380 on base. He has been tremendous. Now, You need a little bit more from the bottom of the lineup. Yohan Rojas has been a bit of an issue. Max Kepler has got a double-figure amount of homers, is hitting a 204, so that's been a little bit of an issue for them. But I do take a look at what you're able to get on the flip side for the Boston Red Sox, and it's been a solid bullpen this year. A top 10 team in terms of their bullpen ERA. It's Aroldis Chapman, just an ageless wonder, continues to give you a below 150 ERA with over 13 strikeouts per 9 innings. And you've had some nice mix and match pieces like a long guy, Garrett Whitlock, Greg Weiser, Justin Wilson, Chris Murphy. These are guys give you below a 340 ERA. And for the Red Sox, they have found their way on offense, even without Rafael Devers. Wilder Abreu is wiling out 20 home runs and is give you about a 330 on base, and then you've got a pair of guys in Ceddanne Rafaela, Trevor Story, that both don't give you really a lot of on base, but a combined 29 home runs. Additionally, you've got Alex Bregman back in the fold for the team, 375 on base. He's been getting a home run every about 18 or so bats. And then the mix and match guys, Rob Refsnyder, Abraham Toro, Robbie Gonzalez, all hitting at least a 265 have been big. Roman Anthony not hitting for a ton of power, but a 380 on base. This is an offense that's starting to come back online, but I do think that for Christopher Sanchez, he's just going to be so dominant in this one. And then for Richard Fitz, you do have to have your issues with the Fitz, as he just hasn't been able to deliver a lot of length in a lot of his starts. He's went 4 innings or fewer, and that's something that does need to be alarming for this unit, as for Mr. Richard Fitz, he's not necessarily a high strikeout guy, to say the least. For Fitz, he's been only able to dish out about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He finally was able to go above 4 innings for the first time since May in his last start against the Colorado Rockies. Keep in mind that was against the Colorado Rockies, and overall for the season, supplying you with about a 4.28 ERA. His walks per 9 rate is pretty solid, as he's only giving up about 2.7 or so walks per 9 innings, but he also has been giving up quite a bit of the deep ball, about 1.6 to 1.7 home runs per 9 innings as well, so that has to have you scared off just a little bit, and that's why I did set a bit of a higher total here. I did set my total at an 8.9. I do think that the Phillies get to Fitz and company, so I do like the over, and with the Phillies even money or better, I'm taking a shot on that run line. 971, 972 on the card. The New York Mets playoffs to the LA Angels. The Professor, Kyle Hendricks, is on the bump for the Angels. Frankie Montas is on the bump for the Mets. The Mets are between minus 165 to minus 176 favorites, and between plus 143 to a plus 150, that number on the Angels, and 9 is the total. The over is minus 120 to minus 125. Under is between even and plus 105, and for the Mets, I set them at a minus 151. Getting a plus 151 or better with the Angels, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the money line. That's just a complete fade of Frankie Montas. And I recognize that Kyle Hendricks has been terrible this year. Kyle Hendricks is completely washed. He has been for years. I mean, he had that one good season when the Cubs won the World Series, and that's about it. As for Kyle Hendricks, 6.1 strikeouts of 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, 4.88 ERA, 478 fielding dependent. He has now allowed at least 3 runs in 3 out of his last 4 starts, and it gets even worse for the Professor when he's been on the road, as on the road the Professor is giving up well north of a 5 ERA this season, and he's been on the road about 1.6 home runs per 9 innings. But Frankie Montas, he was posting up an ERA above 12 in his minor league rehab starts, has come back to the big leagues and has been a little bit better than that, but I mean still, he's made 4 starts and he's given up 11 runs in 19 and 2/3 innings. He's giving up nearly 2 bombs per 9 innings. His swing and miss stuff is not there, less than 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, and for the Mets, this is a bullpen that's really ailing, with having Jose Buto along with Max Kranick, 2 of their better long relievers, currently on the injured list, and that's reflected in the fact that since June 1st, this bullpen is 27th in terms of ERA, so very much less than savory there. You've got a Mets bullpen that additionally has had a bit of a problem with having Mr. Ryan Stanek posting up north of a 4 ERA. He's been really failing the team, and Oscar Barzobin, who was really good towards the beginning part of the season, his ERA is starting to approach a 4 as well. Edwin Diaz continues to be rock solid, and Reed Garrett has been pretty good as well. And then when it comes to this lineup of the Mets, you've got 4 different guys with at least 18 home runs: Brian Nimmo, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Juan Soto, and all 3 of these guys are hitting above a 250, all at least a 320 on base, with Soto leading the way with a 391 on base. But the bottom lineup has been rough. You've had Jeff McNeil at 9 home runs and is hitting for about a 350 on base, but then you've got the likes of a Tyrone Taylor, Mark Vientos, Luis Torrens, all hitting at 221 or worse with not a lot of power. Brett Beatty has 10 home runs, but he's also hitting for a 292 on base, and for the Angels, it's an all-or-nothing team. They're in the bottom 6 in the big leagues in terms of on-base percentage, but they've been in the top 5 of all of baseball in terms of home runs on a per-at-bat basis. Joe Adell setting fire to the rain with 21 home runs at the 315 on base. Taylor Ward hitting just a 230, but 23 home runs. Zach Neto, 15 home runs. He's been good at getting on base. And then Logan O'Hoppe and Mike Trout both have 17 home runs apiece. O'Hoppe at 272 on base. You need a bit more there. And Trout sitting at 241. It's starting to go in the right direction, though. 363 on base, but man, Luis Renifo has been miserable. 275 on base with 4 home runs. That's just not great, but what else is not great? The Angels and their bottom 5 bullpen in terms of ERA. Hunter Strickland has really been your best bullpen piece for the team, and he's out on the injured list. You've had Henley Jansen, Brock and Rolberg both supply a sub 350 ERA, and Reed Detmers has been a little bit better, but Jose Fermin, Connor Brogdon, Ryan Zephyrion, Sam Bachman, whole bunch of guys with a ERA above a 4, so interesting circumstance here. I did set my total at a 9.3 as a result, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the over, and for the Angels, plus 151 or higher, I like that. Money line, 973, 974 on the betting board. It's the Kansas City Royals on the road against the Chicago Cubs. Boy, oh boy, we've got Rich Hill on the bump for the Kansas City Royals, and for the Cubs, it's Matthew Boyd. This game is off the board because I think bookmakers are in disbelief that Rich Hill is actually making a start for the Royals, and this was announced late on Monday, but that said, I've got my handicap. Want to go up to a minus 118 on the Cubs run line. I need at least a plus 229 to take a shot on Dick Mountain and Company, and that is his nickname, Dick Mountain, so yep, that's very fun to say the least, and set a total of 11.1, 11 or less, I'm in on the over, 11.5 or higher. I'm going to be in on the under because the wind is going to be blowing out. It's going to be north of 80 degrees. Wind is blowing up between about 10 to 13 miles per hour. Gusts up to about 15 or so miles per hour. Not good for a guy who at the AAA level was posting up north of a 5 ERA. How are we giving 45-year-old Rich Hill a start? Like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, his last time starting was in 2023. He made a few relief appearances for the Red Sox last year. They totaled like 5 or so innings. Like, when he was last a starter, he was posting up a 5.41 ERA. He couldn't keep the ball in the yard in San Diego. And now he has to go to Chicago, where the wind is going to be blowing out. It's going to be hot. I mean, man, this is just absolutely brutal for him. And you've got a Kansas City Royals team that's currently second worst in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. I will say Salvador Perez is all of a sudden starting to find it, so yippee for Salvador Perez. Not necessarily giving you the world's best on base, but he, Vinny Pasquantino, Bobby Witt Jr., all between 14 and 15 home runs this season, and for Witt, 26 home bases and a 290. For any other player, this would be pretty solid for his standards. He's still a little bit down, but I mean, the rest of the lineup, you're just not getting a lot of power. You have one other guy on the roster with more than 4 home runs, Miguel Garcia, who's been solid, 350 on base, 8 home runs, but you do have a lot of guys that they're just not really moving the line for you, as Kyle Isbell, Drew Waters, both a 290 on base or less, both hitting about a 243 to a 250, but I mean, they're just not finding a way on. Jack Caglione has been miserable. He's hitting a $146 with a 204 on base. You've had Nick Lofton, a young guy at about a 204. John Rave, he's hitting for about a 282 on base. You just need more out of these guys. And for the Royals, this is still a upper half of the big league team with regards to their bullpen ERA, but they're clearly missing Daniel Lynch in that bullpen. And you had Carlos Estevez, Lucas Erceg really have a rough go of it in that Miami Marlins series, both giving you a sub 3 ERA overall for the season, but starting to see a little bit of regression there. And for the Chicago Cubs unit, this has been a just absolutely remarkable bullpen where they have found pitching from seemingly nowhere whatsoever, as Chris Flexen they're starting to utilize as a little bit more of a starter, but he, Caleb Theobar, Daniel Palencia, Drew Pomerantz, all these guys have come in, give you a sub 225 ERA. Ryan Brazier, the opener from yesterday, barely a above 1 ERA as well. Ryan Presley is starting to find it a little bit more as well. And for the Cubs, number 2 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game, Seiya Suzuki, Pete Crow Armstrong, 26 home runs apiece entering into the series, both hitting above a 260. Nico Horner doesn't hit for a lot of power, but he's hitting for about a 285-ish. You've had Michael Busch supply 20 home runs with a 373 on base. Kyle Tucker, 18 home runs, a 383 on base. Dansby Swanson is up to 16 home runs. Just 1 through 9 is an absolute bulldozer for the Cubs, so I did set them as a sizable favorite. And for Matthew Boyd, he's been very consistent all season long. He's giving you a sub 275 ERA, only about 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, down from his career numbers, but less than 2 walks allowed per 9 innings, less than 1 home run allowed per 9 as well. He's been a steady Eddie guy that I think is going to be able to get the job done. 11 or less and on the over, 11.5 or higher the under. And for the Cubs, willing to lay up to a minus 118 on that run line, need at least plus 229 to take a shot on the Royals. 975, 976 on the card. You've got the Astros on the road against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Eduardo Rodriguez is on the bump for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Framber Valdez goes for Houston. Houston is a favorite between minus 118 to a minus 126, plus 104 to plus 107. That number on Arizona. And your total on this game is 8.5. The under is minus 115. The over is minus 105. And made a total of 8.2, so I'm going to be in on this total under for Framber Valdez. He has been one of the most consistent pitchers in all of baseball over the last 5 or so years. This guy just goes out there and he does his job. A 2.75 ERA, 3.02 fielding independent, 9.3 strikeouts at 3 walks per 9 innings, doesn't allow the deep ball whatsoever. He has given up a combined 6 earned runs over the course of his last 5 starts, 6 plus punch outs in each out of his last 3. This guy has been great, and for Eduardo Rodriguez, since coming off of the injured list, he has been much better. He went on the injured list and he was all sorts of brutal there. Now, last 2 starts, a combined 13 runs, 12 of which have been earned. That is not necessarily what you want to be seeing there, but still, if you take a look at things, ever since he came off the injured list, and he came off the injured list in the beginning part of the month of June, he has been able to give you 5 out of his 7 starts with 2 earned runs or fewer allowed in them. So, he's been able to do a much better job there. He overall for the season has a 5.94 ERA, but I believe he's much better than these numbers. 4.56 fielding independent, 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. Does need to reduce on the hard contact as he is giving up about 1.8 home runs per 9 innings. And faces off against an Astros lineup that they've been very solid in terms of their offense. I'm not going to call it amazing. About 15th in the league in terms of runs per game. This does jump to about 4.6 runs per contest when they've been away from home, as they've been dealing with the injury to Jeremy Pena, but that has not slowed this team down whatsoever, because you've been able to get really good power out of Isaac Paredes, who's up to 19 home runs. He's been supplying north of a 350 on base this season. Jose Altuve is up to 17 home runs. He's hitting at 275. You've had Cam Smith be able to do a really good job of finding a way on. More than a 340 on base out of him. Now, you could use a little bit more on base out of a pair of guys that have been able to give you 13 home runs apiece. That'd be Yanier Diaz, Christian Walker, both below 291 on base, but they are supplying you with that good power. And then you've had Jake Myers at above a 300 as well for the years in the Diamondbacks. This team has been very much lacking in the bullpen. They're in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of their bullpen ERA, but they're in the top 5 in terms of runs per game, with Eugenio Suarez supplying 35 home runs at a 330 on base. Corbin Carroll's been a little bit rough since coming off the injury list, but still 21 home runs out of him. And then you do have quite a few guys move the line. Josh Naylor, Geraldo Perdomo, Ketel Marte, Pavin Smith, all give you at least a 370 on base. In the case of Marte, 19 home runs. He's getting a home run every about 13 to 14 at bats. And then again, for the Diamondbacks, brutal bullpen, as you've had Shelby Miller supply a sub-2 ERA. That's been solid, and Kyle Bacchus, in a small sample size, has been able to give you a sub-3 ERA as well. Pretty much everyone else in this bullpen above a 4 with regards to that ERA. Jalen Beeks, John Curtis with 2 S's, Juan Murillo, Ryan Thompson. These guys have been all sorts of awful. And for the Astros, this is a top 7 team in terms of their bullpen ERAs. You've got so many guys like the Bryants, Brian King, and Brian Abreu, Bennett Sosa, Stephen Okert, a whole bunch of guys that are giving you a sub-3 ERA. And then you've got Mr. Josh Hader looking like the Josh Hader of old. So I did set the Astros as a pretty good size favorite here of -133. Going to be willing to take a shot on the money line. Think that this is going to be a lower scoring game as well. It's semi-total at 8.2, so I'm in on that under to go along with Houston. 977, 978 on the card. The Seattle Mariners are playing us the Milwaukee Brewers. The Miz, Jacob Mizorowski, is on the bump for the Brew Crew. Logan Gilbert goes for Seattle. Seattle is a -118 to a -123 favorite. You have a money to +107, that number on Milwaukee. Total on this game is 7. The under is -125. The over is +105, and made a total of 7.1. I'm going to be willing to take a shot here on the over for Mr. Mizorowski. It's been an absolutely remarkable start to his career. I want to see a little bit more before I can give him this sort of pricing, but still, with Mizorowski, this has been absolutely amazing what we've been seeing out of him, as his strikeout stuff is just really second to none, as in his 5 starts, he's been supplying the team with 11.6 strikeouts per 9 innings. He does have the propensity to leave the ball out there in the middle of the plate. 4 home runs allowed in 25 and 2/3 innings, but he has allowed 2 earned runs or fewer in 4 of his first 5 starts. Had a little bit of a rough go of it when he went on the road against the Mets, so that's something to be mindful of. But still, 12 strikeouts in 6 innings against the LA Dodgers. That's a statement. And then for Logan Gilbert, he has had a little bit of an issue giving up the deep ball, but he has been one of the best strikeout artists in all baseball as well. He is posting up north of 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings of his own. Now, the home runs per 9 rate is approaching about 1.5. That is a little bit of a concern. 3.39 ERA compared to a 2.96 fielding dependent. Closer about 1.3 home runs per 9 innings, and he has been able to come off the injured list, and it's been a little bit inconsistent for him. He has now given up 4+ runs in 3 of his last 5 starts. Again, one of those starts was in the heat and in the wind against the Chicago Cubs. He had one of those starts come against the New York Yankees on the road as well. And for the Brewers, even though they have been a top 2 team in the National League in terms of runs per game away from them, I have to think that there's going to be a little bit of regression here. The Brewers are averaging more than 1.2 runs per game more on the road rather than at home, even though they're in a very neutral ballpark out there at American Family Field. Like, this has made no sense whatsoever. For the Milwaukee Brewers, you've got 3 guys who have really been able to slide the deep ball. Christian Yelich, 19 home runs, 340 on base. Jackson Chourio, 16 home runs, hitting at 265. Rhys Hoskins, 340 on base, 12 home runs. Nobody else has really more than 7 home runs. Now, they do a nice job of being able to play small ball, and you've got 6 different guys on the team with at least 11 stolen bases, actually 5 different guys, as they list Isaac Collins in some places twice, so that's interesting. But you've got William Contreras give you about a 350 on base. You've been able to get good production out of Caleb Durbin recently. He's been able to supply a 350 on base. Yelich is really the straw that makes everything go for the Milwaukee Brewers, and for the Brewers, they're starting to figure it out in terms of their bullpen. They had a lot of guys that were so good last year, like Yoel Payamps, Elvis Piero, just really followed towards the beginning part of the season, so they've had to mix and match with the likes of Abner Uribe, Nick Mears, Trevor McGill. I'll give you a sub 3 ERA. As a matter of fact, since June 1st, they're number 1 in the National League in terms of their bullpen ERA, with the way that you've been able to get Aaron Ashby and company to be able to give you some good innings. And then for the Seattle Mariners, the top guys have been very good in this bullpen. Matt Brash, Gabe Spire, Andres Munoz, all below a 3 ERA. Even someone like a Edward Pizarro has been able to come along for the ride. He's posting up a 2.84 ERA, and for the Seattle Mariners, no doubt this is a team that hits a little bit better when they're away from home rather than at home. As a matter of fact, for the Mariners, 5.4 runs per game away from home, 4 runs per game at home. So similar splits to the Brewers. These make a little bit more sense, though, because Seattle is one of the most pitcher-friendly ballparks you're going to find in all of baseball. Big jumper Cal Raleigh, 38 home runs this far this season. Then Randy Arozarena is just hot. 360 on base, 18 home runs. You've got between 14 and 15 home runs apiece out of Julio Rodriguez along with Ore Polanco. So these guys have been able to pick it up. You take a look at this team on what they're doing at home, and for Cal Raleigh, 17 of his home runs have come at home this far this season. J.P. Crawford, north of 400 on base when he's been in Seattle as well. So I do think that you get a few runs in this game. Semi-total at 7.1. I do like the over, and it's not the Brewers that is a very, very slim favorite. I'm going to be able to trust in them on the money line, and we wrap things up with 979, 980 on the card. It is the Minnesota Twins on the road against the LA Dodgers. Yoshinobu Yamamoto is on the bump for the Dodgers. Simeon Woods Richardson goes for Minnesota. Minnesota plus 178 to plus 189 underdogs. Meanwhile, minus 210 to minus 225. That number on the Dodgers. Your total is an 8.5. The over and the under are both at minus 110. And if you're looking at that initial FanDuel run line, that is a minus 108. And I'd be willing to go up to a minus 118 on the Dodgers. For Yamamoto, he has been really the lone constant in terms of starting pitching for the LA Dodgers this far this season, because everyone else has gotten injured. And for Yamamoto, while he is giving out a few more walks than he did 8 seasons ago, he's been very rock solid. At 259 ERA, fielding pennant is approaching a 320, but 10 strikeouts at 3 walks per 9 innings, giving up less than a home run per 9 innings. He has given up a grand total of 7 earned runs across his last 5 starts, so he has been very consistent, and he has been a very steady hand for this unit. And Woods Richardson is all of a sudden coming along for the ride for the Minnesota Twins. Like, he got sent down to the minor leagues earlier this year because he was just that pathetic, but ever since they called him back up, he's been very solid, as he had that one rough first start since they recalled him. He was going up against the Texas Rangers. He gave up 6 runs there, but you take a look at his last 6 starts, he's given up 6 runs, 5 of which were earned, a .47 ERA in this time span. Now, I don't think that that's necessarily sustainable, as he's only been able to get about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings in that time span, and overall for the season, 7.6 strikeouts at 3.5 walks per 9 innings, and is backed up by a bullpen that is in the bottom 10 in the big leagues in terms of their ERA, though. I will say for the Minnesota Twins, the top guys have been very good in this bullpen. The likes of Danny Kalum, along with Yohan Duran, Louis Varland. These guys have been able to give you a sub-2 ERA. Brock and Roll Stewart has been able to give you a sub-3 as well. But Griffin Jacks, Cole Sands, Justin Topa, these guys have been absolutely miserable. And it's a relatively mid offense for the Minnesota Twins, to go with a kid's term there. You've got Byron Buxton give you 22 home runs, 350 on base. And then you've had a lot of guys between about 11 to 13 home runs. Cody Clemens, Harrison Bader, Matt Wallner, Trevor Larnach. You've had Wallner only in for a 205. You need a little bit more there, but a lot of guys sitting in that neighborhood about a 245 to about a 260 or so. Bader, Brooks Lee, Larnach, who I mentioned a little bit before. These guys have been able to do a nice job moving the line. Ty France about a 245 as well. Carlos Correa, not a lot of power, but he's starting to pick it up a little bit as well. But for the Dodgers, this is the Death Star lineup that's averaging between about 5.8 to 5.9 runs per game at home. They have been number 1 in the big leagues. That's not their issue. Their issue has been the bullpen, because you've got so many guys that are banged up. Michael Kopech, Blake Trinan, guys like this being on the injured list have killed them. You've got Will Klein, Jack Dreyer, and Alex Vesia supplying a sub-3 ERA, but when you have to go to Anthony Band, Kirby Yates, Tanner Scott, these guys have been not good for the team, to say the least. Ben Kasparis has fallen completely down the toilet bowl as well, but for the Dodgers lineup, Shohei Ohtani, 380 on base, 34 home runs. You know what to expect there. Andy Paz has cooled down with regards to power, but he's still hitting at 282. He and Freddie Freeman doing a nice job getting online, and for Freeman, he's hitting about a 292. Teoscar Hernandez is up to 14 bombs, not a lot of on base, but 58 RBI. Will Smith continues to get jiggy with it, north of a 420 on base. Having Max Muncy out of the fold has been hurting the team, so you've had a bit more Tommy Edman, who's had his ups and downs this far this season, but Ha-Seong Kim is hitting above a 325. I do think that the Dodgers find a way to slug their way to victory, though I think that Yamamoto holds the Twins silent in this one. Semi-total at 8.3. I like the under, and I do like the Dodgers on the run line, and that'll wrap things up for the Tuesday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. A big thanks to our good friend and Rob Donaldson of the Rob's Best Bets Show for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letter CM, the name does not matter, so per usual, please just send these into the timeline. And the other way is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. And I'm with you guys every single day of baseball season on this podcast, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.